thought you were talking to her. I was listening. Yeah, I don't even like flying to get questions. Yeah, you just go up there. You just
So most of the poems that I've been writing in the last 10 years have been part of that long ongoing project, which doesn't have a title yet, but book 1, book 2, and so on. And when I started, I realized that probably all the poetry that I would write from then on would become, part of that project, that long book. And but about 3 years ago, a bunch of poems showed up kind of unexpectedly, and they didn't really fit into that project. There were turned out to be a lot of them, and that manuscript is called Odes and Fragments, and the first poem that I read tonight is from that manuscript, and I'll read 1 or 2 more from that. As if it were not always otherwise or so. There is a platinum surcease of blonde cloud rising over the bond of Februarial months, even though this is not the ground of that or any other month, but the festooning pluralization of creaking things come to moan in the pleasant happenstances, generating faith as if it had a furlough and could spend it anywhere, regardless of faith or faithlessness, in the proud grand tours of old dames listening to Monteverdi after hours and after-hour joints on the other side of the river where no river is. But then there is contagion as a kind of recompense, an unkind kind of recompense, really, as against all that stuttering falls there and galls the air of its ringlets of spruce time, pining after altars of quizzical small talk between vestry and vestment, there being no quaking in the hills of town tonight, with literal luckless hardscapes keeping us awake from totemless tea things as if wishing could turn them, all that, to something worth taking from life, an afterthought maybe, or the sling things that we give to one another when giving is not enough, when things are not enough, are not things. And the loose slip-sups of stuff are handed about like bandied ices over the mantles of curling spice, where more could not be said of more, nor less of less, even if it were more. And where countless clues count for cluelessness, as Aquarian old farts stutter up the ramps toward home, eagerly in this flourish to be abetting there, as against the casks, the water, baskets full of air, and bully for them. Miraculous minestrone, standing in for minuets and ministers of the radical force type, as it stands on the page, meaning something as nothing means something. But that is not all. Not in this grassless entered fall, it's May, and there is nothing more to say of what's faltering here, what's not even here, or can't be here, can't be gotten here, not even the grapes that push their own harvest into edible, drinkable mouths, conquering fashion as over against trails leaving tide marks on the eyes where eyes would be ears for the hearing. But no, the old young ones are getting up to be dead, starting to be staring past the lines of truncated and truncating blasphemes, crutchless, aching for a kind of morphine that would not be invented yet, but that would have meaning, that kind of morphine. But not that kind of meaning, maybe, as that would be a curtain over where other curtains fed the streams of gleaming meaning, the silvering threads of a line snorted into the dread-slick clackers, the place where we can't go from, a kind of slick palimpsest set over the harbors of waters, water in harbors, boatless of sterns and boatless afts, and the quick diurnal circadian lackluster widdershins going forward into backwardness, as we cut short what was never long to begin with. The life of a flea lived on a round emblem, shaking and diceless, and a cup in a hat, floating downstream from the river to the sea, from the sea to the river, and back up into the air, or the spigot, back into the blameless, slack harbor, where mitigation slips unheard between the slim boards of lording crumpets, old school, and then back again to where there is no back, and to where there is no again, neither gain nor back, but the slim, slick crimp taken in time by one who dies, by one who only dies, there being no time before that for what might have been before that, had there been a before, had there been a that. But no, we're emblemless little tokens ourselves, adrift, and that be that, as swimming over the harvests of the little houses, the big people take what's there, and what isn't there. Slippage as a swarm fest of treacle taken and tokened, the warm harvesters left behind in the slim crack of the ancient rhymer. the slow casking baskets holding words, the element of time troughing into old man humps, so that willingness is not willing, cannot be taken for that, never was that, and never will be that. Willing as one may be in this elementless slime, grasping the handles of the oars, or the slim sweet people and peopling the globe with happiness, those moments that creak out of the hard past like lanterns lighting the lake, the large lake already largely lit by moonlight, hurtling over the falls toward the vale, streaming with redolent personages in redolent boats or boaters, depending on the time of year of life. As eagerly we slump into toward as if that's a destination, as if that's destination enough for a crowd of crowding hungry cats, the little people that make the words sing across the casketless wires, in flood or neap tide, wearing shirts down to their people holes, and the time changes as we think it does, and the hills have change in them. And the river lets the bank slide past, and the ocean sloughs in its cups, and the sky skirts all else, and the trumpets of air inveigle sense out of the uneven ground, and the ground begs for mercy on our behalf. And it's too late. It's too late. It's too late for all that. As Gertrude Stein said, a poem is a poem is a poem is a poem is a poem. So, let's see. Slooping down the long slope toward sloops and finding uncanny reward and no reward, nor in that neither, as we escape into the timbrest of slad October airs, as a sweater becomes itself only when of no longer use, or the bickering flugs matriculates us past what we weren't going to be anyway, not out here, not past where we never got and hadn't wanted to be or to get anyway. We only know that the theater was invented for tyrants and that we're in it and to have us in it, and that all kinds of slag floods muck up the hardship into calcitrant eve-casters as a side way of doing what can't be done undone or even thought about again, not ever again, no gain. So that the drag fwog slup angle ions and the daily paperless harbinger swags flock pastors down the dequestering swept streets or other steps that we fall from. As angling after all of the thrilling slick stuff, we get out ourselves silly, stuck in the unstuckness of the death that camps like a boot, like that booty, in the maw-casp slung drags. This is for Antony and the Johnsons. May he one day grow up to be a beautiful girl. And there are places they throw us, and the getting there gets us all of the trump. So there's no hard-on of the nardening past, old garments given down by slump kind of jammy types cutleting up the sides of the beef, consciousness of a state gone rampant and mad, rampant and made, as an eager frag diligence gets lost over its own hardening sliced up into the ditches of dirges, where only the sillies get past the rest of us, clumpeting on and along into the slick curtains that pass for pastures, or other places we can't have been, not lately. There were days. Could it be cold enough to say that, as against the harboring slank fasterers, crumpeting up along the sides of what lives us and into the token tolls of what's token, the slaughtering wretches crumpeting over again, in pain, as over against the pained recalcitrants that hem and clept them up the grunt sides of harbored grief, briefly as lived as a flint, as useless as a dod wasn't, and then on into the furnace yet to be lit, blighted with flies and the glint stuff of cracked smuck. Oh, it's turn over the time, slack up the crick and fish the warrant out of the warden's clock, find a time, any time, find any time, let that be that, or for Grug's slake, something like that, hastening into the furrows where we used to put our flicker fingers, when time was wet with its own whistle, and our own part of it, none of ours to have to do with it, just the smarmering happenstance, growling out of furtive ground, toward up, dance, crackle, thimble thing happening, no not, or up that toward the sheltering sky of sly remonstrance, the overt quickening of sling, flug, gag, trig, fraggerers, the old school type, the ones that went to school with themselves in the aftermath of the foremath. The ones slot, slang, dug, and then did it, up to us. How, why, what, wherefore, and all that, meaning Less now in the slew of stew slaughtering its way around us in search of us, and the slug doggerel flunking slangward into the west, the best west we've got left, really masterful in its curtailment of itself, of what it was, is, of what is it, of what it might be, of what it might become, of what it will it be that, of what it will become, if becoming becomes it, it won't, it don't, as against them flagger, frag, slunk, drag, olden clip slankerers, them ones, and don't you fucking forget it, the ones with a vested interest in nothing but vested interest, them ones, as the sky strips itself bare of its elements in these latter days, latter than the last ones, and probably even latterer than that, as the sky curves away from itself, and the earth too, and form shapes itself into formlessness, as against being nothing at all, and the pink pigeon pluck of what's up there, what might have been up there, gets caught in the lyrical moment of orgasming dearth. Oh, sad, sad moment, sad, sad thing. And the flock glutterers shoo them all out of the sky in advance of they themselves wanting to be there, taking it all, leaving nothing, such that nothing is left, nothing at all. This is the last poem that I'll read. For going away is to stay. For going away is to stay as if there were another day in this halcyon, this most halcyon of awkward spaces, cackling as squawking does in the thrall of easterly moronic Septemberish spaces that graft the sea drift from the land into sky, the fast death wish that death wishes for, against all that hasn't and all that has been said over the sad, abysmal Augustine sleepover islands, where casks of memory lose themselves in the snot of history, as if hospitality could evoke penitence or turn back what is already back, what is already turned, and what can't be had, not in a million tears, my dear, not as you sweat your hands for thirst, in the egleting horror that smacks of smack, or the thrift gold smut glutting harvest where food is needed for the foodless, medicine for the medicineless, peace for the peaceless, and so on. Get it? Against the deadhead reckoning of what can't be reckoned, what can't be had, tolerated, seconded, or voted out of office. The orifice is too small a target for even the most blastedly blissful of bullets. Hurry, then ghastly things start up in the furnace. The heat rises and settles to ice all along the Danubial lackluster specters of gripping happenstance and greed as the sweatered few greet themselves over handshakes and hankies and the odd glass of what others can't afford to drink. The trough being empty for all but the troops and their self-heralded masterers gathering along the banks of all of each and every river as they advance toward themselves on horseback, the unchosen few spitting one last time before they board the ships for other places that don't exist, gutter-dead, slop-fucked ass-crab masters, looming out of the schools they went to and creaking toward the caskets they attend, not their own. As if an angelic choir could save us, past tense, but it can't, not against the clawed spectrish aping that even art now does on the walls of the penitent cathedrals of space. Art. We're buffeting once, only a few weeks ago, something like hope there was something like hope. Alas, alas, alas. And the week-ending few eat their peanuts beside the Rhine or Chesapeake Bay and have nothing else to say. No, nothing else to say. Not really. Except that as the last of us waves goodbye, goodbye to the last of us. We know only one thing. What was it? Oh yeah, that was it. What was it? Was it worth remembering? What was it? Was there one thing? Did we ever know it? Did we ever remember it? I'm dedicating this to you, Nancy, as against all that has happened since. Has anything happened since? I don't think so. What think, the all of it going down the slide, into the slide, into the down, into the down, into purloined, parboiled, rotten in the flesh, dry rot setting in, into the harvest of a country at a loss for people. The people starving for people. Now that's a way to have that being that, a way to have that be all over that without there being a chance of a thing happening? Nothing. Zilch. Not a thing going on, going away, going a way. To get it going, slender chance, slender pickings in the herbarial garden. Nothing to eat this year, all gone in the buckets of the others, as the 800 here and the 8,000 there and the 800,000 there. Just go away, just go away. Just go away into the gutless few, unspiced, eaten whole, gone, gone the way of a whole person, the whole way of a whole population, a whole generation, a whole several generations in some cases. Gone, gone. Darfur, Rwanda, Guantanamo Bay, the Bay of fucking pigs full of fucking pigs this time of year, this time next year. Assholes stuffing their assholes full of the not yet dead, i.e. the living. Get it, the living, eating a living off the land of the not yet dead. So much not worth bothering about, or so much just in the way, injustice. Just in the way of stuff. We want. There's no tomorrow for that kind of greed, for that kind of unkind greed. There's no tomorrow. Not today, no today even. Not for that kind of greed, that kind of careless lack of caring, that kind of nothingness in the face of need, and the careworn blip faces that lose themselves off the screen before anybody, any of those with the screen, gives a flying fuck into the sickening, crying air. For going away is to stay. Thanks.
Well, thank you all very much, and thank you for wonderful, wonderful reading and for an equally good discussion afterwards. It's just fascinating. As Louis mentioned, Alan is with us for the next until the end of December. He has an office in the English department, and you can contact him through Heather, extension 2288, or the departmental office, and he'll be available to meet with people one-on-one. And Louis mentioned some of the upcoming events at which Alan will be reading October 20th, an evening with Alan Davies, something equally, and Book Fest. And I believe there will be books for sale at these events as well. I do apologize about tonight, but it is most unusual for Martin to be ill. He's been very faithful, and there will be other opportunities to purchase some of the books and hopefully have Alan sign them. So thank you all again very much.
And to the mic, party on down. Now's the chance to have a drop of wine and talk to Alan in person. Thank you.